Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, James and I talk about how we can respond when things go sideways. And by sideways, we mean losing a big client, having a slow period, or anything that affects your ability to show up for the rest of your life. How you respond to setbacks and slow times matters a lot, it turns out. Hope you enjoy.
All right. Hey, Pat,
Yes, James.
are you annoyed with me? That was there was something about the way you said that
I was just feeling quite serious for a second.
here we are in the clubhouse, usually a fun place, usually a safe place. But
I think I'm having a stroke. Okay, yeah.
I might be panicking. I might be panicking, which is actually thematic for what we want to talk about.
Yeah, we
So,
want to talk about panicking.
yeah, and not to do it.
Yeah.
But we all do it. But anyway, how this came up. So I'm walking down an aisle in the grocery store, and I run into this friend of mine who's an editor. So we're chit chatting. I hadn't seen her in a long time. We'd worked on a magazine together, and so how are you doing? What are you doing? And at some point, I said, this year has been really weird, for freelance work, and I've been really, really off. And it just feels like there's something weird in the force. And she goes, yes,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
And you've felt it.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to other people and they've felt it. I don't know if it's generally, outside of publishing and writing, if musicians or, visual artists or whatnot are feeling it. But for our little zone, there is definitely something that is shifted.
Yeah, I agree. I think that whether it's in the force, something weird in the forest, which is what I thought you said first. Yeah, there's something strange. And, this has been going on all year for me. Actually, I was really, really busy up until the end of May. And then had been so busy that I just was like, I need a rest. So I didn't hustle, I just thought, oh, the stuff will keep coming in because it always does. I had 2 great years last year and the year before, but the summer tanked in terms of paid work. It gave me time to do some creative stuff, which I really enjoyed, but my level of enjoyment doesn't actually pay the mortgage. So that got us thinking about our various responses to when a source of when part of your income kind of walks away and you can't really identify what changed. You did a bit of that where you identified the fact that one of the agencies that you work through changed their criteria for, what they forward to book clients. And then I did it a little bit for myself because I realized I had taken a hiatus from teaching this particular course, developmental editing for fiction, because, I got asked to turn it into a sort of an evergreen on-demand course almost. So, and that had been a source of income, but it didn't seem to account, from my perspective, it did not account for the stuff that didn't come in that would normally have come in. I felt like, are writers taking the summer off? Like, did everybody I talked to in the first half of the year who said, yeah, I've got a book. Yeah, let's work together. It'll be ready in June. And then nothing happened, and I don't really, I'll send somebody an email and say, how's it going? But I don't really expect, somebody's book goes sideways. I'm not going to be like, oh, we talked about this, So then I realized I didn't really have a funnel. And I think that's part of what we're going to address today.
Yeah. Part of it, and I can't quite put a finger on it because definitely something shifted within the ghostwriting world where there has always been this like beauty contest of, I want the writer who wrote this, or I want the editor who did this bestseller, or, that kind of thing. And that definitely happened where all of a sudden that's what everybody wanted. And so if don't have a recent New York Times bestseller and all this kind of stuff, you're kind of out.
Yeah.
And you got to figure that out. And so, went through this process, kind of figured it out. But there's more to it than that. So we're recording this just after the election in the US. And so I don't know if people were just kind of taking a wait and see how the election goes, how things shake out. I remember even during the pandemic, I was as busy and making as much money as I was before. And
Yeah,
then
same
just
here.
after, it was just this year that things really, really shifted. And it may have shifted a little bit before because I was really busy with some other projects. And I didn't pick up on it until I was looking for new work,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so that got us talking about, okay, well, these things happen. So we were both, I think you were working during the recession,
Yeah.
right?
Which
2000,
one?
2008, 2000, yeah, 2008, 2009, right?
No, I was actually doing my MFA. Well, I started 2010, so I was working, but it wasn't a jobby
Mhm.
job. It wasn't this work. I was writing a book though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so so I was working and I was on the verge of doing really, really well. This one group that I was working with wanted to bring me in as a partner.
Hmm.
We had really kind of one main giant uh, corporate client, though there was kind of a couple others, and things were really, really, really looking up and promising. And then
Hmm.
the recession hit, and it was like we felt like, and I personally felt like we're a small little nematode in the little system of this very, very large corporation. But nonetheless, we got flushed out.
Yeah. Right.
And so I went from having my year booked and going to make more money than I think I had made in ever, if not in a very long time, to I had no money, no work.
Yeah.
And the group that I was going to be this partner with completely disintegrated,
Yeah.
you know. So there's that experience. And then a couple of years ago, I had a client walk away owing me 35 grand.
Yeah.
And so, both of these experiences, and I think we're sort of feeling this a little bit maybe with this year, is that shifts happen, reversals happen, and you've got to learn the lesson, and this is all common sense, but you've got to learn the lessons you need to learn so you can prevent it from happening the next time.
Yeah. Well, just to go back to the nematode,
Yeah.
for anybody who doesn't know, that's an intestinal parasite. So, kind of love that analogy. Not for you particularly, James, but just for that organization that you were involved with. But so, yeah, you can't because we can't stop reversals from and shifts from happening. I mean, we don't even know when they're happening sometimes until later, and in retrospect, it's clear. I think we're going to do a deeper dive, in the future into what kind of a
Mhm.
toolkit you can develop so that when a shift happens, you can still survive financially, because you have other stuff. From my perspective, what I found was that I didn't have any real process set in place for finding new people. I had a process where, people could look at my profiles on the freelancer associations I belong to and go look at my website and then ask me for a sample edit. But I was not looking for new clients because I was pretty much booked all the time. So, I had enough repeat business that I almost did no marketing. And that bit me in the ass
Mhm.
when my teaching gig ended and the money that I would have earned doing that became a sort of a hole in my income streams. And I hadn't created a strong funnel for letting people know I existed and, that they could work with me if they wanted to. And then the other thing that happened was, I think that I over relied on the existing writers that I work with, and
Mhm.
I feel like I'm not making much sense right now, but anyway.
No, no, I'm hearing and nodding and going, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Makes
so
sense.
the other thing was I had not really used my time wisely in the first few weeks of things calming down, So I finished a bunch of
Mhm.
stuff in May. June was a lot calmer. I went away with my kids for 4 nights up the coast and just relaxed. And then when I came back, I kind of enjoyed not having a bunch of deadlines. I was like, this is
Mhm.
great. I can work on my stuff. But what I ended up working on was stuff that is not really building a raft underneath me. I mean, everything was really fun. I had a lot of fun creating things. One of them was my book launch. That was great. One of them
Mm,
was this podcast. It's still really fun.
yep.
And I got no intention of not doing it, but I should have spent more time just bolstering up my courses that, I took down because they were a pain in the ass to run and I
Mhm.
hadn't fully learned the platform they were on, which is Teachable, and other things that I should have been developing. I just didn't do it. And then so I got to the point probably late summer around when we started the grant experiment where I was like, this could be one of my worst years ever. And
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen again. So I need to build a stronger margin for myself, as in
Mhm.
have more material that I can earn money from if one of my activities, which are basically teaching, writing, and editing,
Mhm.
those are the three main arms. If one of my activities plummets down to nothing, I want enough of a margin in the other two that I can quickly pick up the
Yeah.
slack. And then
And
also to even
I have,
diversify a little more.
yeah. And what we're talking about, I want to, just for some clarity, this isn't about make sure you have enough in your bank account so you can exist for 6 months,
No,
right?
that would be
This
great
is
too, but no.
Yeah, and for creatives mid-level, sometimes that's really, really, really hard and not all that realistic.
Yeah.
So really what we're talking about is understanding how to kind of insulate ourselves from when these shifts happen, right? So there's this whole process of trying to understand the shift and how you can fix your place in it.
Mm,
This is more about, like you said, a toolkit so that we have a way to kind of insulate ourselves and we can quickly make a shift.
yeah.
I would almost say it's like a bug out bag.
Oh, that's a good idea.
When everything goes sideways, it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Grab the bug out bag. There's like money, passports.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
But
sure.
so anyway, you were talking about diversifying, and I don't want to lose that thread.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I have these three main things, teaching, writing, editing, there's something to be said for diversifying, but I don't think in my case adding a fourth thing is going to create the kind of insulation I need. So, probably I mean diversifying within one of those three umbrellas of work that I do, rather than saying, oh yeah, I'm going to add, I don't know, belly dancing to my stuff. That wouldn't be good for anybody. So diversifying within the three umbrellas that I already work under, because I think when things get a little shaky, it's
Mhm.
very easy to say, oh, I should start this other completely different thing. That will turn into something. But it
Mhm.
makes more sense to double down on the thing you already know how to do and just fix what's broken about getting you the new
Mhm.
work in, or, however you get your projects in, really look at what's not working about that. For me, what
Yeah.
wasn't working is that I wasn't doing it. For and for say for the teaching, it means teach for
Mhm.
more than one school. So that if one school changes their approach to how they put out courses, to not that that not to happen. It wasn't flat-footed at all. I was fully, what's the word, complicit in the whole thing. And actually I should have been making this substitute course, like putting it on an on demand thing. I've been trying to do that for a year and a half. And by trying, I mean not trying very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I would say don't be too hard on yourself because one of the things that I know that I'm good at is looking at everything that I didn't do and all the
Yeah.
ways that I feel like I failed and then beating the living snot out of myself. Um, for doing that. And that's never helpful. But I really heard you when you said when things go south or sideways, or however we want to phrase it, that's not the time to try and build a new wing to your business,
Yeah.
right? Or to your income stream, right?
Yeah.
You need to already have those things in process and in the works so that they're as ready to go as they possibly can be. And it's more about a shift of emphasis.
Yeah. Good one. Yeah.
So if the editing dries up, then you can shift to the teaching,
Yeah.
right? And that's that diversify for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's what
So
I mean by that. Yeah.
yeah, and so for me, like when the recession hit, and I'm talking about 2008, 2009, the lesson that I carried from that is I had one stream of New York or new work, right? There was
Right.
one funnel feeding me new work.
Yeah.
And it was one company. And when they closed up, it was like a submarine going deep dive
Mm.
down the hatches. I was on the outside,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I went from having this huge multi-billion corporation that was feeding me work completely disappear, and there
Yeah.
was nobody there,
Yeah.
right? And so it was a hit to me, certainly a hit to my ego, but also a hit to my confidence and all those kinds of things. But what I realized is to rebuild my career, I've got to make sure that I have multiple funnels for new work.
That's a
Right.
smart.
And so I'm not relying on one thing, I'm relying on many things. And I
Yeah.
also realized that if I could do that, that I would also be getting to a point where enough work would be coming my way that I could be selective.
Yeah.
I could say no to certain projects.
Yeah.
And I was able to get there. I mean, it took a while because, the hangover from the recession lasted a while and it took a little bit of time to get there. Perseverance, young kids that needed to be fed and taken care of and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and side jobs. And I went back to working in a restaurant for a long time. All those kinds of things, you got to do it.
Yeah.
But I worked really, really hard at that and was able to do it and did get to a point where sometimes people were offering me work. And in the past, I would have been like, yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
And I was able to kind of say no. And then I had the experience of having a client walk away owing me 35K, which was a gigantic hit,
Hmm.
especially at that point. And I went into that panic mode
Yeah.
where, okay, I don't have money now. I've got to get money. I've got to do whatever I can to get money. And so I started saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I was saying yes to things that would not pay enough for me to actually support myself, feeling like I'm just going to have to, I can work a 20-hour day,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening is I became very, very busy in a way that was incredibly exhausting
Yeah.
for money that was not enough to live on.
Oh my
But
God.
I had made commitments and signed contracts to do these things.
Yeah.
And talk about feeling like you're spinning your wheels and going nowhere,
Yeah.
right?
Been there. That's a
So
sucky place to be.
yeah. And so the lesson that I learned from that is with building, diversifying the funnels that are delivering the work, having faith in those funnels to continue to deliver the work.
Hmm.
Because there had not been a major shift in the economy or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so being a little bit more patient,
Yeah.
if the money really was tight enough, maybe get a side job,
Right.
uh, just to see myself through, but really give myself as much patience as I possibly could to really do the things that I know how to do, which are go out and get new ghostwriting gigs,
Yeah.
right? And it takes time to do that. And so instead of the panic button, I should have been a little bit more thoughtful and deliberate. And, very similar to what you're saying, if I had had a bug out bag or a toolkit that,
Hmm.
talking about, then maybe I would have had something that I could have shifted emphasis to while I was rebuilding or getting in the next new big job that was going to carry me through and fix everything.
Yeah.
So I ended up hurting myself more than helping myself. And
Yeah.
it took me longer to kind of get through it.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this current shift is I don't feel like I've ever been busier,
Right.
but it's not I've been very, very busy, but it hasn't been enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it's, yet again learning that lesson of, And I think you've got an excellent point. So it's not just diversify the new work funnels, but it's diversify what you do.
Yeah.
Who knows if any of the stuff I'm doing now is going to work out, but it
Yeah.
feels like it is. And I have enough trust in myself that I'll figure it out. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I think trust with action is
mhm.
probably, in a nutshell, the approach that I am taking and really will focus in on growing. The approach I'm taking to diversifying in a way that's going to allow me to bump up one area when another area shifts for whatever reason, rather than, panicking. I panicked in a different way from you. I was just like, well, shit, I got a bunch of fun stuff I want to work on, so I'm going to do that. But that's avoidance, actually. I think I was just being avoidant, and that's not healthy either. And I think part of the bug out bag or the toolkit for me will be actually learning stuff I never had to do because I got work. Felt like it was quite easy for me to get work. But I realized that that is, it needs to be bolstered. And then also diversifying the number of places that I teach for. We were talking, gosh, several weeks ago about goal setting. And my goal went from winning the Booker Prize to teaching with Jane Friedman. Boy, did I gear down. Uh,
Well, I think we both did,
yeah,
So
yeah. So,
the
but
title, the title for the podcast, Delusional Ambitions comes from us going, oh, maybe our goals are a little delusional.
yeah. And I think the part that I still haven't done with that is to educate myself. And here I am back with good old Henrik Carlson with that damn unfolding thing, is to educate myself on what how do you diversify the number of places you teach for? It's probably simple. What I'm doing is I'm thinking, but I'm not acting. It's kind of
Mhm.
like with the grants experiment, if we're not taking action regularly in regular time blocks, all the thinking in the world isn't going to give us a grant, because
Right.
if it's not married to action, it doesn't matter. And so that's what I need to really start doing as part of my MO for I don't know about the rest of my life. It's a bit chaotic, but for this for this year and next year is to just really act on the stuff that I know I have not been acting on.
Yeah. Now, so I have two questions for you, right?
Okay.
So the first one is stuff that you're not acting on. We often, I think, when we talk, we conflate our personal creative endeavors, right?
Hmm.
Our writing that we're doing that we want to get published for ourselves, and the fact that we have careers as creatives, editing and writing and that kind of thing. And of course, ideally, we want what we're writing to take off,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think this is delusional, right? But we want it to take off and create income for us. I think maybe delusional would say we want to make $1 million and have movies made, within the next 6 months or something. But
We want to outsell the Bible with our pleasure journal.
your Bible, your pleasure Bible is gonna,
Don't get weird.
yeah, I know. Cool. Keep it cool, man. Uh, so I think part of what you're saying, if I'm hearing correctly, too, is that that work has its importance as well.
Yes.
And that's the question, right? It is doing more of that work part of that fixing process.
Yeah. I think building in I have just fell in love with this word margin. Building in enough space to make working on the creative stuff, a central pillar, really, and to be able to pay all the bills and make money regardless of how that central pillar goes in terms of, will this project sell to this publisher or whatever. I think the my personal belief, which could be delusional, is that my shit will sell. I don't, it's just finding the right place for it.
Mhm.
I feel quite confident for some reason, even though I'm not multiply published or anything like that. I just feel like, yeah, there's a place for everything, you know? There is
Mhm,
gonna be a market for everything. And so I wanna still create because it's part of my operating system, and I don't wanna do it, at night. You know, I don't wanna write all night. I guess maybe I used to write before work for 2 hours every day, and,
mhm.
you know, that got me through 5 novels, so it's not like that was a waste of time,
Yeah.
but, I feel like my full-time job is quite flexible in that I'm not editing all day. It's physically very difficult to edit all day, and,
Mhm.
so I can create the kind of day I want, day in and day out, by putting the creative work that I'm doing into part of my time slotting, which is what I do, I time block. So, yeah, that's the long-term goal. Does that even answer your question?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I guess maybe the question is more accurately asked, how does that personal creative endeavor fit in to that? And you definitely answered it because yeah, it's part of the operating system. It's why we're here in the first place, right?
Yeah,
I did not walk into the world of work saying I want to be a ghostwriter. I walked into the world saying I want to be a writer.
yeah. Uh, you know, as much as I really love the other work I do. I love teaching. I didn't expect to. I didn't start
Mhm.
teaching till maybe 2016, and I really love editing. But it's just that I'm happier when I'm also creating something of my
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
You know, and actually, I think teaching is creative. I think editing is creative, and I think running
Mhm.
a business is creative. But I mean, for me, that it takes the form of writing stories, and so that's
Yeah.
just my fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. As I feel better physically and emotionally and intellectually and in all ways, and more connected to myself and life and everything else when I am doing my writing.
yeah,
And when I'm not doing my writing is I start to feel disconnected and things don't feel as good.
yeah.
And I get frustrated that I have to have a job to earn money.
Mhm.
That makes it difficult to do the thing that I really want to do. But I
Yeah,
also have that confidence that, I've had short stories published. When I complete things, they go out the door.
yeah,
They usually find a home, not
yeah,
everything, but usually. I think maybe that mid-level thing is we need to let ourselves have that confidence that
yeah.
we are good enough. We can continue to grow as artists in our own right, and
Mhm.
that's an important part of that bug out bag.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. And it's also just because everything I do is sort of in the same field, it's all around writing and publishing. And when I teach writing or I teach editing, giving enough time to this self generated creative stuff actually, once you got a body of work, it gives you more credibility. You make more money in
Mhm,
in the other parts of your income landscape. So that's also a good reason to give time to
mhm,
your own creative work.
mhm. Yeah, it all feeds each
Mhm.
other, you
Yeah.
know, from an emotional standpoint, but also from financial and everything else.
You know, to me, on some things, the money is secondary. Like, I'm really happy that I like all aspects of the work I do for money. There's nothing I don't like
Mhm,
doing.
mhm,
You can get yourself to like your whole job, but
mhm,
this is a natural fit for me. But I really also like the idea of having the toolkit or whatever to strengthen every single aspect of the three pillars of my income so that I'm not concerned that they're built on thin air, you know, like it's
right, right.
like if I don't have a funnel, then the editing part of my work doesn't have any ground underneath it. And that's what I discovered this year, which after 12
Mhm,
years editing, better late than never, I guess. 12 or 14, somewhere in there. So I'm just going to really solidify those pillars,
mhm,
like from the ground up, make sure they're not just built on one thing, that they have
mhm.
a bunch of earth underneath them, and that I'm not just a nematode in one.
In a
uh,
single intestinal. Yeah, you can be in many intestinal systems.
exactly. I could be a nematode. No, can you though? You can't,
Not
actually.
literally. Not,
Oh, you
not
metaphorically.
metaphorically, in the broader sense of the spiritual nematode or the creative nematode.
Yeah, I love that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go off on a tangent and just rebrand Lucid Edit to enteric nematode editing and see if that really helps.
I think that's brilliant. My lawyers will be in touch because I feel there's a little theft of copyright here, but
Oh, intellectual property theft? Yes.
okay. Well, one of the things that we talk about is there's a lot of anxiety that comes with what we do because you always sort of feel like you're dangling a little bit
Yeah.
in mid. And I think this is one way to help mitigate that anxiety where you feel like, okay, I've got a few different things that I'm relying on. If something dries up, I can transition or I can put more focus over here. You learn to have a little bit more faith in yourself
Yeah.
that I can react.
Yeah.
And then, the second question that I had for you, have you ever hit a point or, a reversal where you've said enough? I think I'm going to quit doing this and I'm going to do something else.
Yeah. It's been a few years though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I get pissed off and I think publishing sucks and I hate this and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then I look around, I'm like, oh, what else is going to give me the opportunity to potentially make significantly more in terms of money and contribute more to society and all this kind of stuff. And I realized, not really anything else. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of a privilege to be able to do this. And I really love what I do,
Yeah.
so it's like, all right, you've been here before. This is just part of life. This is how this business goes.
Yeah.
Um, so suck it up there, nematode.
I know. Well, I'm wondering if part of the bug out bag or, the toolkit or whatever is also just, I'm not crazy about the word mindset, but just knowing how to ride the waves and go, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's not an emergency yet, so don't panic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do-
Yeah.
Take a look at your, like, have a CEO meeting with yourself and just go, like, lay out the whole thing on a flip chart,
Yeah.
go, these are all the areas that I'm working in. This is, this went sideways in this area and this one's not working out over here. What can I, how can I look at the big picture and just not spiral?
Well, and I like that you do that. And you do that a lot in your work where you take a very business like, I don't want to say it's not so much attitude, but have
Yeah.
like the meeting with yourself. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. At least once a quarter, I have that meeting
yeah.
with myself. And I try to have like an hour every couple of weeks where I just kind of go, what balls do I have in the air part,
Mm,
and which ones are directed toward my longer term goals or are relevant, and which ones I don't know what's going to happen yet, but so why am I doing them? And if I don't have a reason for doing them, that's fine. I just want to know if I don't have a reason for doing it, because then I can
yeah.
realize what the reason is. Basically, it just wasn't in my mind. So yeah, I do have a lot of, I think, because I find business so creative, like I just find
Mhm,
the idea of it so creative. You can do anything you want if it's your business. And so why
mhm,
not have some fun with it? And also, I really love big picture thinking. I think that's why I love the conference industry so much. You don't start with, we've got this venue and we're going to do stuff in it. You start with, there's this organization or this group of
mhm,
people and we want them to have a really good experience. How do we make that happen? And then you kind of walk through everything in your
mhm,
mind 2 years before you even have the event.
mhm.
And then you realize that vision, right? And so I feel like business is the same way. You walk through, sometimes if I have a little CEO meeting with myself, I'm just doing dumb shit like imagining what color Smarties I'd have in the break room of my non-existent office. But most of the time, I'm actually, so those things make me laugh. But the other thing I'm doing is thinking, what's going right? What needs work? It, is there another way to look at everything? Because
Mhm.
I really like that kind of thinking. And really, I'm walking through my business 2 years from now going, how do I start now to make that what I really want it to be?
Yeah. So, so like the jokey part of me is I can see Pat in a Best Western meeting room with a very long table, and she's put, pictures of people on the chairs, coming in and busting some balls because, God damn it, we're not hitting targets, Court. Let's hit the ball.
Yeah, yeah,
But then I hear you say I really enjoy having my making my own way in the world with this work that I do.
yeah,
And why not think broadly, and why not have fun with it, and why not be expansive?
yeah.
I often don't do that. I get so tunnel visioned
Mm,
about things that I fail to have that moment of stepping back.
yeah.
It makes it very difficult to get that kind of perspective. And so you're able to really do that.
Yeah, yeah, it just strikes me as natural. It's a natural thing because your business is your livelihood. So if you're not taking the big picture on it, who is, you know?
Mhm.
And if you're not directing it, then who is? Well, and that's when panic happens because, it takes something in the outside world to make you look at how you're doing things. I like to look at them sort of preemptively or, and regularly so that
Mhm.
the outside world is not the one driving my decisions so much. And so far, it seemed to work out. I just find that I am more open to fun stuff because, I just one of those people who thinks life it's not easy, but it can be fun.
Mhm.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. So, what do you think? Have you ever panicked when business got wiggly? Or did you cope like a champion? Let us know, we'd love to hear. Send us an email to giftedunderachievers@substack.com or subscribe over there at Substack and join the comments section. Have a great day.